Hi, my name is Bridget Pasker. I'm the Associate Principal Cellist of the Phoenix Symphony, and I'm very excited to get to share the All-State and Regional excerpts with you today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about auditions in general before we go to the actual excerpts. Auditions are a pretty stressful thing for most people to do. So I'm sure most of you are feeling some pressure, and that's totally normal. Don't worry about that. Everyone's feeling some pressure. Just a few pieces of advice to go into it. Because everyone's feeling the same pressure, you're still all on the same playing field, right? We're all starting from the same place. And I want everyone to remember that success looks different for each person. Just showing up and playing your audition is you being successful. It doesn't matter whether you get in or not. You've already done something that's really, really hard, and you should be incredibly proud of what you've done. Just prepping for this is a lot of work, and you will have learned so much more than you ever thought you would. That being said, you also want to play your best. So part of this whole thing is me being able to give you some pointers on how to play each of these excerpts to the best of your ability. So let's move on to the excerpts. So the first one that we just did was the Brahms Piano Concerto No. 1. It happens about 8 minutes into the movement. So if you want to listen to it, which I very much encourage you to do, that's about where you'll find this little snippet of music. Brahms generally wants to have a pretty rich, warm sound. So you're definitely going to want to have a really nice vibrato. And I would very much recommend not playing open strings unless you have to. So for example, I'm starting on my first finger on the C string, because then I don't have to shift at all for those first two measures, actually. I guess I do for the B natural, sorry. But it's all really close by. I don't have to do any really big shifts, and everything is pretty easy to reach and easy to vibrate. So as you keep going up, you want to make sure that you really get that crescendo in measure 186, and have the peak of it be 187. So the peak of it is not the E flat. The peak of it actually will be the G in 187. So I think you can get to like a healthy mezzo forte. You can really sink into your sound a little bit there. And then of course the second one goes all the way to a forte, and then you have accents at the end. So starting in 188, I do the same fingerings. Make sure you really give some accents so that it's clear that it's different from what you've been doing before. It is kind of the first separate bows, but it's also definitely the only accented part. So make sure that those are really, really clear. right, for this excerpt, Haydn is very different than Brahms. So we want to actually not use vibrato at all, which you're probably not going to because it's hard and it's like technical, and this is not, and it's not music that you would really try to vibrato very much, but the very beginning of it, make sure is also pretty really still with your left hand, which means that you're going to have to work hard to get a nice warm sound with just your bow. And that's, I'm sure, something that the committee will be looking for, something that's nice and warm versus something that's just a right. You want to make sure you're still having shapes, you're pulling the sound, you're leading somewhere. So so I kind of think of measure 57 and 58 leading to 59, and then that G flat is definitely the most interesting note of like the whole thing. So we're going to there, and then it's kind of a release after that, and then we get to the arpeggios, and it's kind of joyful and fun. The arpeggios, I think, should be off the string, which is what you saw me do just a second ago. I like to figure out fingerings that are going to allow me to shift once or twice and stay. So, for example, like in 63, I definitely would recommend trying to avoid something like that. If you want to use your thumb, you can. Personally, this is just me. Bridget Pasker has a phobia of using her thumb, so that's why I don't do it. If you're good with your thumb, awesome, go ahead and use it. I picked the fingering so that I didn't have to use my thumb because I don't like it. And then again, 65, we have sforzandos. So similarly to in the Brahms, we really want to make sure that those are different than what we were doing before. So really let your arm sink down into them and really just let it kind of bounce off of it. So I'm doing down, up, up, because it's kind of like a big circle. You can just have everything kind of go like this, and it's a lot easier to sink into those sforzandos than if you tried to do them on an up bow. Mendelssohn Hebrides Overture. This excerpt you'll find right around 9 minutes into the music. It's pretty far in. It's close to the end. And in recordings I've heard, there's actually like different ways that this is articulated. I've heard it slurred, and I've also heard it all separate. So I chose to break these slurs in the first 4 measures. So I'm going so that I can get the same shape for each one. If I felt like when I was trying to do them all in one bow, I didn't feel like I had enough bow because it's fortissimo. And then like I tried it like down up with the whole bar slurred, and that just didn't work. So I settled on breaking the slur into two beat sections because that felt the most comfortable. That's something that I think you should work with your private teacher or your orchestra director or whoever you're working on these excerpts with, and you can figure out what's best for you. That's just what is best for me. So whichever you do, you want it to be really nice and strong, and da 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 da. I think you really want to go to that second big beat, so big quarter note beat 3, or like the second half note of the measure, and have it be really kind of long and wide. And then as we keep going through it, I like to think of 230 to 234 as like a big crescendo. I know the whole thing is fortissimo, but he does, at least in this edition, the fortissimo is reprinted at 234, which kind of implies that there's been some sort of direction towards that place. Even though you're already loud, somehow there's still direction going towards a new section. So I would definitely try to think of those 4 measures as going into 234. And then, again, accents in 237. They don't have to be super long. This music is, it's a lot of energy. So if you were to play like, I don't think that's appropriate. It kind of makes it sound heavy, and it slows it down a little bit. So you want to have a lot of energy. So that it's not slowing down and not getting heavy. And then the ending, I had to work on it actually quite a bit these last few measures. Just to not get tongue-tied. So I was always totally fine with like 241 and 242, and then I got to 243, and for some reason my fingers got a little tongue-tied. Even though I was doing, like, that first half of the measure is exactly the same as the first half of 242 and 241. Somehow my fingers just got a little tongue-tied. So making sure that you're shifting your focus to make sure that those are really gonna be correct. Maybe you don't have that problem. Hopefully I didn't create that problem for you. But just something to look out for. Again, even though this whole thing is fortissimo, like the whole thing is fortissimo, there's another fortissimo printed at 244, which I would say 241, 242, 243, see if you can have those measures lead into the ending, just like you did towards the beginning. So see, I get tongue-tied. But really making sure that it just leads all the way towards the bottom, towards the end of the excerpt. So I just played the Brahms Piano Concerto No. 2 excerpt. This is by far the hardest excerpt in this whole list, as I'm sure you've already figured out. It's an excerpt actually that is asked on professional orchestra auditions. I played it. I had to play it for my audition for the Phoenix Symphony. And I've played it for many other auditions as well. It is a principal solo, so just the principal cello is playing this melody on top of the orchestra, on top of the piano. It's really like this particular movement. When you go and listen to it, you'll discover is really more about the cello than it is about the piano, and I think most piano soloists would agree with that. It's a really big one. So anyone who is learning this, good job, because it's hard. It's so similarly to the first Brahms, you want it to be really nice and warm. You really want to have, like, you're looking for absolutely the most beautiful sound that you have ever created. It does say piano dolce. Assuming that the committee that is listening to you knows the piece, they're going to know that this is a solo and it's not played softly. It should be played tenderly. It should be played intimately, but it's not going to be like really soft, because it has to be projected out. So for this one, there's a lot of vibrato work that's going to need to be done. Even I still have vibrato work that I need to do on it. It's kind of a constant work that you're going to do as long as you play the cello. You're going to always try to be getting your vibrato to sound better. So having it just be find a place where you can start and everything's really balanced, everything can be really flexible. And in this one in particular, I like to exhale before I start playing. This doesn't work for winds and brass at all because they have to breathe in to play their instruments, but we don't actually have to inhale to start playing, right? So this kind of adds tension, it lifts everything up, whereas lets you release all of your tension, it lets you relax everything down and really just so this one is a very personal excerpt. When you go listen to other recordings of it, you're going to hear tons of different tempos. You're going to hear a lot of different sound qualities. You're going to hear lots of different shapes. I play this the way I play it. I've developed it this way after years of practice, and this is how I do it. It is a fairly standard, nothing like crazy way of playing the excerpt. But I do some bow changes in measures 4 and 5 that aren't printed and are not necessarily something that everyone would do. So don't just follow the bowings that I did blindly. Talk with your teachers, talk with your orchestra directors, and see what they feel is best for you, for those especially. I also do a couple bow changes in measure 7 that are extra. And that's, again, from the years of work that I've put in and how I personally play it. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And there's a lot of different ways that you'll hear it done. So go listen to other recordings, lots of other cellists play it. And kind of develop your own personal take on how to play this excerpt. But the basics are have the most beautiful sound that you have ever been able to have, and it'll be great. Yeah, this is a very hard excerpt, so it's going to be the one that probably takes the most of your time. But as long as you're working hard on it and you're listening to it and you have a really clear idea of what you want, I think it'll be great. So that was the Dukas Sorcerer's Apprentice. This one is more of a technical excerpt, so really making sure that everything is precise and really well in tune. Of course, the part at measure 19, getting up all the way up to kind of the top of the instrument, is going to be key to be super in tune. So this is going to take a lot of slow practicing. Really make sure that you're very confident with every shift that you have to do, that you're very confident with all of the bow strokes. So when you're practicing slowly, you want to make sure that you're doing exactly the same thing that you're going to do when it's fast. So like if I were to play this slowly, right, which is exactly what I would do it's exactly the same thing as I'm doing when I go fast. So I'm really teaching my bow exactly what it, like how much it needs to sink in to get a nice crispy note. My left hand is doing exactly what it needs to, even when it's fast. I'm making sure that it's perfectly in tune, especially when it's slow, because as soon as you start going faster, you start to lose precision and accuracy. So the more precise and accurate you can be slowly, the better it's going to be fast. I do a lot of up-ups in this one because it's most comfortable for me. I think most orchestras would probably play it the same way. But if you feel better doing some like just as it comes, so like down, up, that's totally fine. Just make sure you're doing whatever sounds the best for you and whatever you can get the best like short, kind of crispy stroke. And then right at after measure 29, they have it's a kind of a light colored double bar. That's going to be just like take a pause there for a second. It's actually a different section. So it's the same tempo, a little bit faster than what you just did. That's what the plus animé means. But it's not, it doesn't just go straight on in the music. There's other stuff, and then this section happens. So measure 30 is going to be just a tiny bit faster, and then 37 is going to be even a little faster than that. They don't need to be, it's nothing drastic, just a little, just like, even if you're just thinking more ahead of the beat rather than like being nice and centered in the beat. So like a would be kind of a centered beat, whereas something more ahead would be a, so it just kind of feels like it's falling forward. I think that's really all you need, is feeling like it's falling forward just a little bit. And then 37, again, the same thing, just a little bit further forward, like you're really going somewhere. Again, this excerpt is pretty much all loud. A lot of these excerpts are pretty much loud. The only one that's actually technically piano for most of it is the Brahms Second Piano Concerto. So making sure that throughout these you're making variations in dynamics and making shapes, even though there's nothing printed, even though a lot of it is just marked fortissimo. Make sure that you're thinking about direction in your line and where it's going, how you want to shape it, and where your ultimate like the peak of the phrase is going to be. So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about in these, and I hope that everyone does their absolute best at the audition. We all want everyone to succeed, and whatever that means for you, I hope that works. I hope that works out, and I hope that you feel like you were successful, and I hope that you're proud of however you play. I know that you've put tons of work in. You're going to keep putting tons of work in, and however it goes, you should be proud of what you do.